Halloween, when the streets are alive with costumes, candy, and laughter. But behind the masks and glowing pumpkins, there are stories. Stories of tricks gone too far, treats that came with a terrifying price, and Halloween nights that ended in screams. Tonight, we bring you 3 true, scary trick-or-treat stories that will send shivers down your spine. Story 1. The House That Shouldn't Exist. Our first story begins in a quiet neighborhood on Halloween night. A group of friends was trick-or-treating, hitting every house on their block. As they reached the end of the street, they noticed something strange, a house they swore hadn't been there before. The house looked abandoned, but the porch light was on and a pumpkin sat on the steps. That meant it was fair game for candy, right? One of the kids knocked on the door, which swung open by itself. Inside, the air was cold and the walls were lined with old, dusty portraits. They called out, "Trick or treat," but there was no response. They saw a bowl of candy sitting on a table. It was full of their favorite treats, almost too perfect to resist. But as one of the kids reached for it, the portraits on the walls seemed to move, their painted eyes following every step. The kid grabbed a piece of candy, and the door slammed shut behind them. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the empty house. The friend screamed and bolted out the door, leaving the candy behind. The next day, they returned to the cul-de-sac, hoping to figure out what had happened. But the house was gone. No sign of it, no porch, no pumpkin, just an empty lot. Story 2. The Stranger in the Mask. Our second story takes place in a small town, where a boy decided to go trick-or-treating by himself. He loved Halloween and didn't want to miss out, even though his friends were all busy. Everything seemed normal until he noticed someone following him, a tall figure in a plain white mask. At first he thought it was just another kid, but the figure didn't carry a candy bag or knock on any doors. It just stood there, staring. The boy started to feel uneasy. He crossed the street hoping to lose the stranger. But when he turned around, the figure was still there, standing under a street lamp. Finally, the boy mustered the courage to ask, "Are you following me?" But the figure didn't respond. Instead, it tilted its head and took a step closer. He ran to the nearest house, where a kind elderly woman answered and let him in. They peeked outside together, but the figure was gone. The boy never trick-or-treated alone again. Story 3. The Haunted Candy Bag. Our final story is about a girl who couldn't wait to dive into her Halloween candy haul. After a long night of trick-or-treating, she dumped her candy bag onto the floor and noticed something unusual. An old wrapped piece of candy she didn't remember picking up. She didn't think much of it and popped the candy into her mouth. It tasted bitter, almost like dirt, and she quickly spat it out. But that's when the strange things began. The lights flickered, and she heard faint whispers, almost like someone was saying her name. She checked her window, but it was shut tight. Her candy bag, however, had moved, now sitting in the corner of the room. Terrified, she grabbed the bag and threw it in the trash. But even then, the whispers didn't stop. That night, she dreamed of a dark figure standing at the foot of her bed, holding the same piece of candy she had spat out. The next morning, she found the candy bag back in her room, perfectly intact, as if it had never been thrown away. She never touched Halloween candy again. Halloween is a night of fun and fright, but sometimes the scares are all too real. Whether it's a haunted house, a mysterious figure, or an unexplainable candy bag, these stories remind us to always stay cautious on the spookiest night of the year. Which story gave you the biggest chills? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales. And this Halloween, keep your eyes open, because you never know what might be waiting in the shadows.